A big warm welcome to our panel 11, how products design digital processes and intelligence can optimize FTTH rollout and reduce total cost of concept. My name is Christian Priess. I'm head of Central Europe at Hexatronic, and we are manufacturer of passive FTTH material. I'm here today as representative of the FTTH Council, where I am on the board. We have a very interesting panel today to talk. First, we have Amerigo Garifano, who is Vice President Telecom at SiteTracker. SiteTracker is a deployment operation management software. Companies like British Telecom, KPN, Segra, and ChargePoint manage millions of sites and assets, representing billions of euros using SiteTracker. Before SiteTracker, Amerigo had a long career at Ericsson. Next to Amerigo, we have Mike Greening, who is a commercial strategy and product director at Evinium. Mike has a past as product director at Fibre and as commercial strategy director at Sky. Next to Mike, we have Rahul Puri, who is vice president and general manager of STL Europe. STL is a global optical digital solution company within 5G, FTTX, enterprise, and data center networks. Rahul is also an angel investor and a startup advisor, helping companies in the technology and e-commerce sectors. And at the end, we have Dion Bonnet, who is vice president product technology at Amadis. Amadis is a provider of end-to-end FTTX solutions and was taken over some 8 months ago by NetSeed. And Dion has been with Amadis for 1.5 years and comes from software as a service. We will start with Amerigo. So, Amerigo, please go ahead.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here in Berlin, Germany, the largest of the EU country in terms of population and economical power. Fiber to the home connectivity is a real driver for citizen improved life and for the enterprises to reach efficiency and have new revenues through new services that fiber connectivity can provide. Together, as a community, we have the opportunity and also some sort of obligation to make sure that we work all together to make sure that the 2030 digital society objectives are achieved. And therefore, we need to get together to remove any hurdles that we'll find along the way to the success. Paraphrasing an American expression and adapting it to the European Union, we pose ourselves as a starting question, what is the state of the Union in terms of fiber to the home connectivity? And among the various targets that this slide displays, and I have to make a little note here that this slide was submitted for this presentation a few weeks ago before the announcement that happened during these days from the FTTH Council about the market panorama. But the numbers are not that different. This is from September 23, and the element that is interesting for us is the coverage versus the 100% coverage expected by 2030. We see that we are around 60% coverage with an uptake of around 50%. And I think that's where is the challenge, because we have around us an environment that is not so favorable because of interest rates and also because of the geopolitical situation around Europe. So there could be some sort of resistance or concerns to adopt and invest in FTTH deployment. And that's why we need to make the best to make it happen. The panel scope today is not about regulatory or any kind of financial discussion. It's more about how the technology that our companies, as examples of the industry, can bring to facilitate the let's say, the adoption of fiber to the home, but most important, to accelerate the deployments so that we have the objective achieved and with a reduced total cost of ownership. I represent SiteTracker, which is an American company providing a solution, a software solution based on cloud. And my objective today is to bring up a little bit the pains that we have seen by dealing with operators and contractors in Europe and the United States. And therefore, I would like to use it as a base for discussion, also for the panel discussion afterwards. Our software addresses the FTTH network deployment, so it's primarily used by any service provider or contractors who has the challenge to deploy a fiber to the home on the ground and up to the connectivity to the homes. And the objective is to have an out-of-the-box solution so that we help these players, I repeat, service providers and contractors, to manage the end-to-end life cycle of the assets they are putting in place. So the challenge that we have seen by talking and dealing with these solutions at the customer end are different and can be categorized in these very four simple bullets. Organizations tend to work with data silos. So from network planning to operations to finance, every organization, and especially if it is a large organization, tends to build its own tools, its own processes, and then by definition tend to work in silos. And therefore, there's a little bit of a complexity that the data get in some way stuck in their own departments. The second aspect is a complex bureaucracy, and by bureaucracy, primarily we report the challenges that both service providers and contractors have with the permits. And naturally, these are constraints that municipalities and governments are putting in place to make sure that other aspects are preserved. But definitely, they imply a big a stumbling block sometime for organizations that needs to manage a fast deployment. And the third point indicated here with inefficiency and manual handoffs is maybe represented by a statement that I heard yesterday one of our customers saying, a tier one operator here in Europe, and he was saying, all our people are running around with their own Excel files, quote. And Excel has been a good technology maybe for some decades ago, but it tends to have a sort of limit because everybody's working with his own files, and then the data, and I'm connecting now to the next point on my slide, lack of data integrity. Therefore, it's very difficult sometimes to make sure that there is a single version of the truth. And there is a data that is always challenged, plus the aspects of having complex reporting and inaccuracy of data. Last point is communication. Maybe we don't run around like chickens without head, another typical expression that I've heard, because we're all sitting behind our keyboards, trying to send an email, finding a file. So again, this question about streamlining the collaboration and finding more modern ways of working, it's very basically explained, but still it is found in the field. So, as a final recommendation, what we would like to say is that it is important to identify and standardize processes in its own organization to make sure that everything that can be that is repeated will be repeatable according to templates and formats, so that basically the wheel is not reinvented every day. And the second aspect is to centralize the management of data through, for example, cloud-based solutions. So that means every single user has access to the same data, and whatever is changed and visible in real time. And last but not least, it is important to create a culture where basically everybody works to make sure that the information are reliable, and management leads by example by avoiding, for example, to ask a dedicated report if everything is then ready as part of a common solution. So having said that, I would like to hand over to my colleagues, just making a final statement about the experience that SiteTracker has matured over this decade, working with these kind of customers in Europe and the United States. And we feel that we can be an important player for you in this context of making FTTH network deployment faster. And I'm really looking forward for a vibrant panel now with my colleagues here. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. So just a very quick introduction into who I am, and I think the purpose of this session is just to really give you a feel for some of the opportunities for artificial intelligence, where some of the challenges are, where some of the pain points are, where some of the success factors are to actually make it worthwhile and to get the most out of the deployments that we're seeing today. Okay? A very quick introduction to me, and I think Christian's already done that. So I'm the Chief Commercial Officer with Invinium. I've been with the company for the last 9 months or so. Before that, I was with Fibre. And the reason why I joined Invinium to get into this artificial intelligence space is that they were actually selling to me whilst I was at Fibre, and I was totally impressed with some of the benefits that these types of solutions could bring to telecoms operators. And it kind of blew me away, which is now why I'm with the company. So in terms of who we are, we provide computer vision solutions. It's all about understanding visual data, specifically with asset inspection and quality control. And that's where we're able to do specific detections to identify pain points that an operator may be having across its network. So in terms of artificial intelligence and what it is, I think it's a completely overused term at the moment, so I'm not really going to try and give you a definition of what it is. I think for me, specifically, it's all about sort of, teaching the machines and the computers to learn, reason, and make decisions just like humans do, okay? And also to learn, improve, and develop as time goes on as more data is ingested into those machines. But they can be used in some super powerful ways. Obviously, the hype at the moment is all around generative AI. ChatGPT, clearly, I think everyone would be familiar with in this room. It's amazing in terms of natural language processing, the generation or development of chatbots and how they've evolved over time. There are many, many innovations that are out there. And then in terms of the benefits that we're seeing, there are lots and lots of benefit. This is an Ericsson study, and the focus was really there on, and what we saw was improving customer experience and driving network optimization and employee efficiency. And those seem to be the biggest themes. And if I look at the operators that we engage with, I think there are 3 main areas. One is streamlining workflow and processes, cutting costs out of business. The other is driving improved customer experience. And thirdly, it's around enabling of processes and driving revenue. Okay, and I think when I look at the stats here, I see increasing sales is all the way down the bottom. I'm not sure whether I quite agree with that and whether you would as a team here. So the initial theme of this presentation that then we tweaked slightly was all about carbon footprint and how AI could really contribute to the development and improvement in really helping meet some of the agenda goals that are out there. So most of the operators here have signed up to 2050 as part of net zero. I think there's more ambitious operators out there that are looking to do it by 2025. But in reality, you know, when we look at what's being deployed, there aren't that there are initiatives out there, but they're not really being developed to their full potential at the moment, and they haven't been deployed. So most of them are around sort of monitoring and managing energy consumption, driving down costs. And the one that we're focused on as a business is really how these types of solution can drive workflow and automation of tasks. So how can we really improve business processes? How can we eliminate rework that can take cost out of the business? Okay. And what this slide does is sort of pull some of those user cases that we're particularly focused on. So as I said earlier, we use computer vision, and there's a number of use cases where it's being used, from sort of shared managed infrastructure access. So in the UK, for example, I know there's many operators across Europe, France in particular, where our solution originated from, that you've got third-party CPs that are using your infrastructure. And you may want to have an understanding of what they're doing to that infrastructure, making sure that they're leaving it in the best possible condition. And that's where our solution can come in other computer vision solutions, because they're actually able to detect anomalies, identify faults, and then through doing that, those CPs are able to manage that work and repair those issues in real time when they're in the field. Other examples are around build completion. Okay, so all of you, so in terms of if you're an FTTP provider today, you're going to walk your network, right? You're going to send surveyors out. And I think the challenge of doing that is that you may only cover part of your network, but you're identifying faults. And when it comes to build completion, what we're able to do and what computer vision is able to do is actually identify, you know, where some of those issues are that could be addressed to help accelerate that network deployment. One of the biggest user cases that we're seeing, and certainly the uptake and the discussions that we're having, is all around the customer install. So everyone is going to install customers today. I'm not sure, from an operators here, can you just raise your hand if you're a full fiber operator? So we have a few. In terms of right first time, some of your key metrics are going to be right first time, early life failures, cancellations. What is your sort of, if anyone knew a number like right first time rates, so when you actually leave that customer premise and you're leaving that service as you want it to be left, so it's working perfectly for the customer. Anyone got a feel of what the typical percentage is for an operator? It's about 90-ish%, okay? Early life failures are around 2 to 3%. There clearly drives to bring that down, but undertaking sort of health checks. So when you leave the premise, you're able to actually, yes, there's a number of checks that are done today when the operator leaves, but being able to automate that is where there is a real benefit for operators to drive up those right first time rates. And then when it comes to empowering engineers when they're in the field, again, masses of opportunity to provide guidance, predictive maintenance through using a whole range of AI tools. And then where do we see the benefits? Okay, so when we look at and we undertake business cases for our customers, there is a whole host of TCO considerations that need to be taken into account. And I think that the TCO and what the ROI model is one of the it's one of the key drivers for seeing success in, let's say, in initiatives in reaching deployment and being rolled out and being able to prove what that business case benefit is. And typically, where we see the benefits are around reduced rework. So if it's going to cost you whether it's 200 euros to 300 euros to 400 euros, depending on whether it's a one-man crew or two-man crew, that will significantly impact the business case and the payback of that customer. And what we're looking to do and what initiatives are driving is minimizing the number of unnecessary truck rolls that you need in terms of eliminating. The other is around sort of accelerating rollout and upgrade. So when you're rolling out the network, one of the challenges is if you can't get that network signed off, then there could be potential delays in getting that network out to those customers and then seeing a payback on that network. In accelerating it, whether it's 4 weeks to 10 weeks to 3 months, particularly in markets where there are overbuild, that can have quite a significant impact. And then the final one I just mentioned is around carbon footprint. I think all of these initiatives actually, particularly around rework, contribute to reducing the carbon footprint. I don't think, when I look at the initiatives that are out there, they're not necessarily focused specifically on sort of carbon and emissions. What they tend to be focused on is around streamlining operational processes that can have an impact on the carbon footprints. And then in terms of our customers and where we have seen benefit, okay, so we have rolled out our solution across a number of operators in Europe, and I think it's fair to say that the benefits have been strong. So the key benefit is around reducing the number of trouble tickets, the pain points and the incidents that are being raised. And what we've seen with this particular customer that we have, it's reduced the number of trouble tickets by 7,000 per year. And you may say, well, that doesn't actually sound a lot. But when you actually then translate that into the number of engineer hours, okay, and then the cost of saving those 20,000 hours and those 7,000 truck rolls per year, it actually makes the payback and the ROI on these solutions very, very attractive. And then what about the future? What is coming next? Okay, there are plenty of opportunities in this space. We're being asked for, and what we're seeing are more and more complex detection cases. Okay, so we're being pushed as a business. Some of the key areas that operators are interested in, for example, and it's being raised during this conference, is around the depth of trenches, having an understanding what ducting you have in those trenches, how wide is the ducting, sort of metrics that can help an operator define whether their network is being rolled out correctly. So yes, starting with simpler object detection, but when you take a specific image and you can identify 30 or 40 specific detections, and then undertaking more and more complex modeling. So for example, if we take EV charging, where do you put that EV charging point on a wall? Being able to take an image and then identify where specifically it should go, and where is there enough space for that point. It sends an engineer going out to the field. But what we're finding is the models are becoming more complex. The other is around, I would say, augmented reality and wearables and hardware. So at the moment, we go out and we can take a photo with an app on a mobile. The images come to us, but looking forward, there's going to be a lot more opportunity into augmented reality, supporting field engineers when they're in the field, specifically by empowering them with insight and knowledge to actually complete their tasks that they're working through. And the same applies to customer fault resolution. So giving the insight to the customer. Okay, so this isn't just about chatbots in the sense of giving them guidance on how they set up their particular router. This can actually be taking live images from the customer premise and feeding back through computer vision and deep learning, feeding back insight and instruction to the customer so they can make those repairs and do the tweaks that they need to do in the home with the two sole drivers. One is improving the customer experience so that customer becomes more sticky and it doesn't leave you, as well as eliminating the need to send an engineer. And that's generally what our customers are looking for. And then there's other fields of AI development. So we're seeing large language models, unsupervised learning, so data sets are getting larger. And for us, it's about how we can exploit these innovations, like multimodal models, to really give the best possible insight and the most actionable insights to our customers. And then in terms of the deployment challenges and success factors. So there are a few, okay? And generally they are across the data pipeline. So from our perspective, when we're working with customers, the initial challenge is selecting the initial user cases. And there's generally hundreds to choose from. And the challenge is often just focusing in on the priority cases just to get up and running. There are very sophisticated operators that have 400, 500, 1,000 AI initiatives. But a lot of operators we speak to at the beginning of the journey. And it's really about prioritization of those user cases. The other is about preparing data. Okay, so getting quality data takes the biggest amount of time when we're working on projects with customers. Okay, and getting that data, working with customers so we can then extract insight from it, is one of the most challenging parts of the engagement that we work on, and it's where probably most of the effort is required from the customer. I think when we look at training models that our customers develop, many try to do it in-house. We often see sort of poor performance in some of the models, and it can take a massive amount of time to get those models out the door, right? And the ones that do get out the door, they don't always have the business benefit, right? So there's many initiatives in headcount and resource that's put into developing machine learning models to work on detection cases where these companies do not realize the value. And what that does is it really is taking what we're seeing a long time to exploit value from AI initiatives, when an operator maybe have its head down and it's doing it solo. But then what are some of the enablers for success? Right? So prioritization of roadmaps is fundamental. Right? So getting it in work stacks, making sure everyone is aligned within the business. And it may sound like complete common sense, but when we work with customers, that is not always the case. Okay? Working with partners. So we define ourselves as a partner. We collaborate with our customers. And again, there's opportunities there where we help accelerate that time to market, working with them. It could also be operators working together, right? So as operators want to exploit large language models, they may not want to do that by themselves, right? They may want to partner with others that are out there. And then I think the other is, and I'm going to just touch on it, as I mentioned it at the beginning, driving and accessing the benefits and the ROI. So really think about the ROI, build out those TCO models, and this is what this session is all about. Because without the TCO models, it's sometimes very difficult to get these signed off. So when we work with customers, that's one of the first things that we engage with them on. So look, hopefully that's been some nice insight for you. I'm almost at my end of my time. I have 15 minutes. So I'm going to hand over to the next speaker.
So from software to AI to hardware. Good morning, everyone. I'm Rahul. I represent Sterlite Technologies, which is a market leader in fiber optics and connectivity and software, as Krish introduced us. What I'll try to cover today, and this is a very small font for me to read, I'll try and read there, is what's happening on the fiber to the home or fiber to the premises space, how innovation, even on the product side, is bringing it faster, first time right, and some of the things you heard earlier. Unlocking faster and easier FTTH deployment is something which I'll touch upon. Scope of innovation, especially on the hardware side, people do think it's longer product life cycles, lesser innovation than on the software side, but still there is a lot happening. So I'll touch upon a few examples and give you live examples how it's been done with some of their customers. And of course, doing it all with a sustainable future in mind. It's surprising that all of us who are here, assembled here in this forum, still there are doubts among people who think, is fiberization the only way out? Is this going to be a must-have for everyone? I personally feel it is more or less like a fundamental right for every citizen to have good connectivity wherever they are. In fact, there have been studies which talk about So much so 1 to 2% added to the GDPs of the countries if they have proper fiber connectivity. So that's something which is phenomenal, which we are talking. The era we live in is something really revolutionary from that point of view. Clearly, there is a digital divide between the haves and the have-not. We saw the numbers, 60% fiber to home, 50% uptake, so still there is 70% of the population which still doesn't have good connectivity. I'm sure many of us, when we travel around, do struggle with getting good connectivity. Second, obviously, is global competitiveness. So how does Europe stay competitive to the global environment? A lot of emerging markets are now, I originally come from India, the kind of fiber connectivity that's been rolled out there, they took the leap from having very little copper connectivity to completely fiber connectivity. So they are now, probably ahead of the race. China is ahead of the race. US is now starting to catch up very quickly. So Europe has to continue doing more of what they've been doing in this space and do it faster, first time right, and do it sooner than anybody else. It also helps, we obviously saw it, especially after the pandemic, it helped closing the skill gaps. It helps, bringing in people from the rural backgrounds to the underprivileged to come up and upskill themselves and learn new skills using connectivity. Smart cities, again, it's no longer a fad. It's no longer a word which is thrown up in the air. It is something which is becoming very real. A lot of cities, a lot of governments are now, right from security to monitoring to managing to everything else, utilities, smart cities are becoming a reality for all of us now. And of course, to have all of that, we need to have a sustained investment momentum. And we've seen that happen in the past. We've seen the governments, the venture capitalists, the funds, the private-public partnership, all of that coming together to making sure good fiber networks are rolled. Clearly, for unlocking faster fiber and easier FTTH deployment in Europe, there has to be innovation on infrastructure. Whether it's micro trenching, pre-connectorized solutions, aerial deployment, passive optical networks. Then there has to be regulatory framework, which is evolving, which is always evolving. But we need to have probably a second wave of push from the regulators to make that happen and probably liberalize a little more, whether it's with regards to permits, infrastructure sharing agreements. We heard a lot from speakers yesterday about it, public-private partnership, as I talked about earlier, and financial incentives to roll out networks, especially when it comes to probably the last mile or connecting the last 20, 30%, where you will need a lot of support from the regulators to do that. And then, of course, technology innovations. We heard about AI, we heard about software. Again, in terms of materials, just how advanced can we go and how much innovation can we do. So there is a scope of innovation there as well. As a company which is into fiber optics and connectivity, for us, clearly there is a lot of product innovation which keeps happening, keeps evolving. Whether it's examples are 3D georeference cloud-based scanning. We heard about it earlier. Smarter networks. How can we reduce the total cost of ownership? The home pass cost has been a big challenge in Europe. So how can products help reduce that? How can we use the existing duct infrastructure to blow out more fiber? What products can be used? Micro trenching, again, with minimal disruption, how can we roll out networks faster and more efficiently, and first time right, of course. Integrated solutions, again, skill set has been a big challenge for our industry always. How do we make sure we make the products which are easy to install? Examples being pre-connectorized solutions. I think a lot of telcos are now starting to look at some of these solutions to make them easier and faster to roll out. How can they be quick to deploy? And of course, getting the whole solution for the engineers to go out there and do it faster. Not just that. Again, there is a scope of innovation on logistics as well. Probably Dion will talk a bit about it later in his presentation. But yes, how do we reduce the cost as well as the carbon impact by our logistics and supply chain, whether it's multi-packaging, sustainable logistics options. What I always keep talking to our customers is, I think the mantra for us as a company is global. Be global, but be local. So we do have presence for manufacturing, for warehousing, closer to our customers, and then we also have our factories far away, which can also ship in. So how do you manage that for our customers? And of course, use technology, AI, to solve for these things. As I said, I'll talk about a couple of examples. One of the interesting ones is how we use a pre-connectorized solution for faster deployment for BT, and also used a high fiber intermittently bonded ribbon, which I like to call intelligently bonded ribbon. So where we could blow almost 2x the fiber, or 864 fiber in the traditional pre-installed ducts. We could blow up to 1.5 kilometers. So that's something which really helped BT roll out their backbone networks faster, and obviously reduce the installation time by about 30% for them. Another interesting example is, as I said, some of the solutions which are changing the way the networks are rolled out, and also making them smarter, faster, and more manageable. One of the examples is the Stellar Fiber, which is a fiber which has the capabilities of an A2 fiber, but is fully backward integrated into traditional D networks. So that's something, again, which helps telcos continue their journey through innovation without disrupting their existing networks, which have already been deployed. I talked about the high-density ribbon fibers, going all the way up to from about 72 fiber to 6900 fiber, again helping use the existing infrastructure of the ducts to blow more fiber. And of course, as I touched upon earlier, underground and aerial optical interconnect kits. All this has proven significantly in reducing the cost and the time for network deployment for our customers. This, also with a very clear focus on the environment, on the Mother Earth. We all know that the fiber networks consume far less energy compared to the traditional copper networks, but also help, with smart cities, homes, optimizing the energy usage, and promoting sustainability. We have, I don't know, there's a study which exists so far where it has kind of calculated the impact of people working hybrid or remotely and not putting an impact on the environment by traveling to work every day. And of course, FTTH promotes cloud-based services, reducing the need for physical servers, which is again a big cost advantage, as well as a sustainable option. Clearly, for us, this is our #1 priority when it comes to sustainability. It's in the core of our ethos, what we do. So clearly, producing all energy-efficient products, prioritizing renewable energy sources for all our operations, reducing the carbon footprint, implementing eco-friendly production processes, promoting waste reduction. In fact, there's a very interesting case study where we've actually repurposed all the residual products from our manufacturing processes, and we've actually proactively gone out to industries, so much so as far away as automobile industry, to use some of these raw materials or surplus which came off, and they were repurposed there. So it's not always a costly affair to be eco-friendly. You can always be smarter about it, but definitely needs an effort. Proudly, whatever we do is all the plants we have are zero liquid discharge and zero waste to landfill, so they're certified. So one of the first and pioneers in this industry do that. And of course, we are aligned to the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and as Mike said, we are trying to we are one of the companies that are trying to do it sooner than the 2050 target. Just to summarize the key takeaways from my presentation, innovation must balance cost effectiveness and long-term sustainability in deployment. Collaboration among policymakers, operators, industry players, and communities is vital for fiber to home or fiber to premises innovation and adoption in Europe. And last but not the least, Europe can definitely unleash faster, easier, cost-effective FTTH deployment and help bridge the divide, the digital divide, which still prevails amongst our people. With that, I pass it on to the next speaker. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. From software to hardware to some sort of a combination in robotics. My name is Dion Menet, and I will be hosting this session on the robotics. So what will we be discussing today? First, we have to look a little bit to what is a fiber network and to see where a robot can be applied. Next, we will look at some small functions on what a robot can do for you. And finally, we will see how the robot can actually impact the total cost of ownership and how it will reduce it. But first, let's have a small overview of how the network looks. This is the way how we look at it. So in the infographic, you can see a POP. Those are the blue houses. It goes through pipes, ducts, cables to street cabinets or distribution points, and then to households. There are two places where a robot can be applied, both in the POP, the point of presence, but also in the street cabinet itself. And it depends a bit on how you want to organize and lay down the network and how deep in the network you want to keep the flexibility. So as I mentioned, we have the first, the street cabinet with a patch robot. You can see it here on a photo. It's actually also on our stand in Hall 27. And you can see it, 25, sorry. Yeah, you're right. So this is meant when you want flexibility deep in your network, the robot will patch there. But you also have the option to have it higher in your network inside of a POP. We had it last year on Anga as well. Here you can see it also on the photo. It can go, of course, a little bit higher in amounts of connections, and that's due to the size. So, but what is a patch robot? It's actually a two-layered approach where passive meets active. And over here you can see the robot working. I think I can, make it a bit bigger. So it's now actually patching cables. So it's looking for the right patch cord. It finds the right port, and then it will patch it in. Let me see if I can. Yeah. So just to get some steps on what the functionality is of the patch robot and what it can do for you. Well, first, it cleans. Not your house, of course. No, it cleans the patch cord itself, so you have a clean connection before it will put it in. It will select the patch cord itself, of course, as I mentioned. Then it will also patch automatically. It routes the cable very nice, so the cable management will be done smoothly. So on a later stage, all the cables will be smoothly managed. It can test, so it can put light on a cable to see if it's actually working, but also an OTDR test. So we can measure how well the connection is made, and it will have a huge benefit on the later stage of building the network. It checks, here is some AI coming in as well. So we'll check with the camera if the patch cord is installed correctly to really physically test and check if it's applied well. It can also learn also through AI. So that means that when you have a lot of robots running and small mistakes are being made, the robot will automatically learn, and that's due to a centralized cloud with big data, and it will automatically update the functionality on that and therefore make less mistakes. It will create and update a database automatically, and that means that when you select a patch code, it will understand which one it was and where he put it. So then the database is built up correctly and stays correct. And that's also quite important over time. It also communicates, for example, an auto alert to a network operating center that something is off, so you don't have the actual problems in the field. It does it up front, so customers' connections will not be hit by it. And last but not least, it can connect, as I mentioned, with the network operating center, but also with a tablet. And that can be very interesting for mechanics. I've got a short movie on it to show you a use case on how the patch robot can work. Unfortunately, without sound. So over here you see a mechanic going inside a house. It will communicate with the POP, with the patch robot inside. The patch robot then selects the right cord. It removes the dust cap, checks it with lightning. The mechanic can then see, okay, this line is correct, so there's no dust inside it. The network will work fine. So then the customer, the actual end customer, has a direct connection, and he knows, okay, this is working now. And that's basically the use case of a POP with patch robot. So how does this influence your TCO? Well, Mike already mentioned it as well. Constructing, it's very important to have a first time right. Doing so, you will save a lot of trouble later, but especially a lot of cost. So things like cross connections that we have to solve in the later stage, you can directly test it and therefore make sure that there is no cross connection anymore. You can solve it directly during the construction phase. You can put light on it, you can do the AutoDR, and then you immediately see where is the problem occurring. You can fix it immediately before closing down the construction. As I mentioned, there's also a learning curve in AI, so that will help build your construction, your network better too. And finally, I mentioned it a couple of times already. The AutoDR is very important. It will store it also in the database, so then you also see the involvement of the network and on the quality of the network. So you can learn how it will evolve. A second point that is quite relevant for the TCO is the connecting phase. It has to be very efficient. When you will connect, you can automatically perform a AutoDR again. It corrects the database if something is off. Then, because the data is correct and it can automatically patches the right patch cord, you can also speed up your business case. And that's because if an end customer wants to have a new connection, the robot will do it automatically and you will be live in 30 minutes. So a lot of savings on that too. And finally, it's also a little bit about the experience, of course, especially for customers, but also for the mechanic. You can imagine that if a mechanic has to drive to a POP for, let's say, one connection, it's a lot of time, a lot of effort just for one connection. But also the drive that you have to do towards a customer, an end customer. We've seen it in a couple of studies, especially in Belgium, that on average 4 customer visits were needed to be able to actually connect that customer. You can imagine being home 4 times for a mechanic and not even having installed the internet yet. So that also has a huge impact on that. Mike already mentioned it as well. If you look at troubleshooting, this is actually not included in the business case that we made, but you can imagine that if you want to fix a problem directly, it was relatively cheap. But if you want to wait another day, the mechanic has to go back, he has to search for the problem again, the cost of fixing those problems will rise. And especially after maybe a year, when you have the homes passed, you want to start homes connected, and then you will find out that a lot of things are not right, cables are not having the right quality anymore, yeah, then obviously the cost will go up dramatically. So you want to be sure that you don't have that. Looking into that business case, I just made a simple overview. So what we did is we looked at an area with 20,000 households to connect. And I looked at a 10-year period. With that, we have a starting point, the construction phase. We started with 30% penetration rate, and it will go up to 50%. So the investment, the capex needed, will be a steady line. And that's because you see here cumulative numbers, but you do it once, and then obviously it will remain the same. Looking at the OPEX that will be involved with the patch robot, it's actually a very low line. The cost that is included in this are things like maintenance and also some small power consumption. We need to take that into account, of course. So then if you look at the savings, and this is mainly labor cost, traveling cost, etc., you will have a huge line going up, and it will have an impact on your cash flow. And over here you can see that the cash flow is negative in the first 2 years, but after, let's say, 2.5 years, with a penetration rate of 35%, you will already reach the red numbers, which will have a positive impact on your total cost of ownership. So that's actually my conclusion too. So investing in patch robots with AI can lower your TCO over time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dion. We would very much like to open up for questions from the audience, but Dion, maybe a question from me to start with. It seems like a very interesting concept. Are customers already using it now, or how far are you?
Yes, is my mic on? Yeah, thanks. Yes, it took a lot of years to build up the concept and to actually get it operational. But in the last year, actually this year, we started to roll out street cabinets with patch robots in Belgium. So now more customers are seeing the benefits of laying down a network with patch robots inside. Yeah.
Any new markets in mind or coming on?
We are always looking into different markets, of course. But as shown in the business case, it's actually the most value is when the construction phase still need to happen. So, for example, in Germany, of course, Belgium as well. And we always look at different markets to see if we can help out laying down a high-quality network with a lower TCO.
Good, thank you. And then, Rahul, you mentioned a couple of examples, but could you give a few more examples and to help us understand how innovation helps in rolling out faster FTTH networks?
Sure. So I gave a couple of examples, but I can give you one more very interesting example as well. Drop cables and pre-connected solutions. Most of the telcos use it. And there was a challenge thrown at us by one of the leading telcos in Europe that can we have just one universal drop cable which can be used for overground, underground without duct. So just that would have helped them, one, with faster deployment, also getting the cost down, better management of inventory, and you know all the benefits. So we actually came out with not a flat but a round drop cable, because then it's very easy to take it around, without the bends across a wall as well. And this universal drop cable can actually be used for all the stuff I just talked about. So then we did a case study with the customer. It brought down the time of deployment, or lighting up a house, or taking the fiber to the premises by 35%. So that's phenomenal. So that's something which is a good example of innovation done hand in hand with the telco.
Okay, thank you very much. And Mike, also a question to you from me. Computer vision, where do you see the biggest opportunities?
I think this, as I described on one of the slides that there's opportunity, there's many user cases, and I think if we look at where we see the interest coming into us, it's either in the build phase and it's in the installation phase of the network lifecycle. I think the customer life management is definitely an opportunity, but it's, I think, one for, if I was to pick a year, network build completion and install is 2024, and then customer life management in terms of using computer vision to support customers with managing their routers, self-installing, I would say is 2025. And what we're seeing when we engage with customers, it's what is driving the biggest pain point for you, okay? And that's the dialogue that we have with our customers. So what is driving your cost base, and what is, for example, driving calls into your inbound call center? Because that's where the costs are going to originate from. And I'll give you an example. I spoke with one customer, and or prospects, and one of the key user cases that they were very interested in was where they positioned their router in the home. So they were going into a new customer. They may be winning customers from BT or Sky in the UK. Their own engineers were then going in. And they may have been putting the router in a very different position. It sounds like a very simple user case. But that user case was driving the bulk of their calls within the first 30 days from new customers. So it's about how can you use computer vision to eliminate that pain point? And that's generally the conversations that we have.
Okay, thank you. And then, Amerigo, also a question from me to you. You're talking about relying on data. Can you give us a few examples of where relying on data has significantly improved efficiency?
Yes, definitely. Data is accompanying the whole life cycle of a project, and data can be information relevant to the site, to the material that is put in place, to the permits, to the contracts. So, I mean, it's a very long list of data that we manage through our platform in collaboration with our customers. So, definitely, data management is a key question that needs to be addressed, and the time saving is an important element because it shortens the communication between different departments. It improves the collaboration between service providers and contractors, for example. But most important, it impacts also the quality of the data. So, as I said, it could be permits information, could be site information. It's everything that has to do with the life cycle of the asset.
Good, thank you. Any questions from the audience? Then we are happy to have them. We have a few mics, so if you raise your hands, then our colleagues will quickly give you a mic.
Thank you so much for your nice presentation. Regarding the robotics, is it possible that you give me a rough idea about the cost for an operator with around 1 million subscriber?
Out of the top of my head, no. But we have our stand at the 25, half 25, and I think it's interesting to show or to see how your network is organized and how we can calculate together how the business case will be interesting for you. Yeah.
Anybody else? No. Then, Rahul, on sustainability, can you talk a little bit or give us some examples or key steps that our industry, especially the manufacturers like STL and also Hexatronic, should take to be more sustainable and environment friendly?
Sure. No, I think it's one thing I keep saying, the sustainability slide in the annual reports has now started moving to the front and center than the last slide on the deck. So I think, unfortunately, mine was the last still, but now it's becoming more relevant and more important for everyone. And this is not an end. It's a journey which continues for all the manufacturers like us, right from, as I said, what raw materials you source. Do we use virgin raw materials, or we recycle those raw materials? Can the drums be recycled? Can the residual products be repurposed, as I talked about? Can we use lesser chemicals in our manufacturing processes? Can we create products which are more sustainable, built to last? Everyone talks about 25 years. Can we do 50 years? Yes, everyone is working towards it. I heard some of my competitors talk about it yesterday. Then using the existing infrastructure, as I touched upon in my presentation. And last but not the least, the whole supply chain and logistics as well, because that has a footprint as well. So can we do sustainable packaging, smaller packaging, reuse those packagings? So it's as I said, it's a very vast field to look at, but definitely I think as an industry we are. When we deploy, yes, we create a carbon footprint, and in fact, that that's been talked about, that we as an industry are creating a very large carbon footprint when we deploy networks, because the vans roll out, the engineers go out. But once it's done, I think it's probably the most efficient and built to last network. So hopefully, it is more eco-friendly that way.
Okay.
I think if I was just to add to that, from our perspective, it's around, it's like a combination of initiatives. So I think when I look at all of the players that we have here in this conference, we can all contribute to, the sustainability side in our own way. And I look at artificial intelligence and the robotics that, you've worked through, which is absolutely fantastic, and leverages computer vision. So maybe we should have a chat. Whether it's around predictive maintenance or self-healing networks, like emissions or not emissions management, but just energy management in terms of the power that's required to manage data centers. I think it's really, from my perspective, taking those, combining it with what we do in terms of reduction of rework. It's a combination of those things that will contribute to hitting those targets that we've set out. There's not one silver bullet.
No.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I think this topic is also very relevant to us and to our core values as a company. Both the health and safety, but if we want to stick on the environmental impact, what we try to support is the number of site revisit reduction and make things right, and therefore the importance of having accurate planning, clear data that everybody can rely on, and the accuracy of this data together with, now I'm taking the opportunity also to talk about the integration with other companies in the ecosystem, for example, like in Veniam, can work very well in collaboration with ours in terms of addressing the end-to-end life cycle, and therefore making sure that aspects of installation quality or site revisits for the implementation of the network can be done right at the first time, and therefore reducing the number of visits and therefore the impact on the environment.
And then maybe a question to the both of you in software. We all know that ROI can be quite difficult to measure. How would you go about measuring the potential benefits, Mike, if you start?
I think when we start engaging with a new customer, it's about understanding the workflow and the processes that they go through. I've talked about identifying where the pain points are, but if we looked at and we sort of take a PI or shared infrastructure process within the UK, then there is engineers, or there's a number of subcontractors involved in the process. They have to go out, they have to take images, send them back to the operators. They have to review those images. So there's a whole stepping stone of activity. And I think when we break down those stepping stones of activity, we can then start to pinpoint which are the areas that is driving the cost and where are the unnecessary costs that they're seeing or the pain points that they're seeing that can be actually eliminated. And for me, that's the most important thing when it comes to an ROI. And it's not actually just one aspect of cost. Right? You've got to, yes, we can say, well, rework saves €200 per visit, and then that spits out a number. Yeah, that's correct. And often enough, that one element is enough to justify the ROI. But then in other user cases, you've got to look across a cross spectrum of benefits and then work on the quantification of those. And I think what's important is actually understanding what those metrics are that you're looking to improve before you start the project. Because once you've done the project, it can then be very hard to justify the ROI. So if you know what your starting point is and you know what the target state is, you can then start to work towards that to actually see whether the initiative will let you get to that target state.
Amerigo, a comment from you?
Yes, first of all, for our customers adopting our solution is very easy and predictable to understand how much cost they're going to have with us, which is an important factor. Compared to what they have most of the time have their current solutions, we help to reduce the number of systems in place, and therefore we address one of the aspects is, let's say, their own IT cost to manage their projects. Then when we go down to the actual savings that they have on cost implementation, having a more effective planning machine like our software is meant for, we help them to reduce the number of days that are necessary to bring a project live. And our experience is showing that we bring benefits up to 30% reduction. Then every single individual, a project manager, can do more within his own week because he can streamline a lot of activities, and that is been estimated in around 5 hours per week for every single implementation project manager. Then once the life cycle of a site is brought to acceptance in the network, and therefore it can go live and be producing revenues, this definitely makes a faster revenue acquisition for the end customer. So it is a combination that many times we prove in the initial collaboration phase with our customer. We help them to understand where they're going to have costs compared to the current ways of working, and definitely they see that with our solution they go much faster live, and therefore they can anticipate revenues.
Okay, interesting. And Dian, then back to you, and maybe in parallel to the question before from the gentleman in the audience. How many connections would a customer need to have before this really becomes interesting for him?
Yeah, so it's really depending on the topology, on how you build up your network, of course. Let's say you can choose the POP with the patch robot or street cabinets. But in general, we took the example already in the presentation, that if you want to have 20,000 households connected, you will have roughly 18 street cabinets that you need, 1,100 connections per street cabinet. And we calculated that it will be roughly 35% that you need to get it in the red numbers. Sorry, in the black numbers, of course. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, so that depends a bit, of course, on how fast the penetration will happen. That has a huge impact on the business case, of course, and also on how you want to lay down the network itself. How much street cabinets do you want to install?
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that can help is around commercials. So when you talk about the minimum number of customers, you need to make it, sufficient to pay back if you want to call it the cost of development to use this tool set. Mm-hmm. Clearly, if you're a smaller operator versus an operator that has 10 million premises, you're not going to charge them the same amount for using the solution. Mm-hmm. Right? So there's some creative ways in terms of the commercials that can make some of these innovations attractive for much smaller operators, not just the larger ones that have got deeper pockets.
Yeah, good. So we have 1 minute left. Any questions from the audience that we can answer? Please, again.
We have two types of operator. One of the fiber operator is going based on a street cabinet, that they have a lot of street cabinet in the city. Mm-hmm. And the legacy operator has a few point of presence in the city. Mm-hmm. So your solution is suitable for the second one?
For both, basically.
For both?
Yeah. So when you have it inside the POP, it can go directly to the distribution points and to households, but it can also from a pop hub go to the street cabinets with batch robot. So it depends on where in what kind of topology you're in, also in what kind of area you are in, so high dense or low dense, and that will have, of course, an impact. But we always sit together with customers, of course, and to see, does it make sense to apply this in this certain situation?
Thank you.
Then thank you very much. We are out of time. Thanks to our panel, thanks to the audience for coming, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for hosting us.